It often starts with a small moment you don't think twice about. Maybe you reach out to hold your partner's hand while watching television, and she pulls it away. Not in a harsh way, but in that subtle, quiet manner that says, "Not now." Or perhaps you lean in to kiss her neck, and instead of that gentle sigh you used to hear years ago, you feel her body stiffen just a little. These moments can leave you puzzled, sometimes even a bit hurt. I've spoken to many men and women over 60 who find themselves quietly wondering, what changed? Why does she seem to welcome some touches but shy away from others? I'm reminded of a couple I'll call Helen and Robert. They were in their early 70s, married for over 4 decades, and still loved each other deeply. But Robert told me in my office one day, "Doc, I just don't get it anymore. I used to know exactly how to make her smile. Now, I feel like I'm fumbling in the dark." Helen, sitting beside him, nodded and said softly, "It's not that I don't want closeness, I just feel different now. My body feels different. What I like and don't like has changed, and I'm not sure how to explain it." That conversation stayed with me because it reflects something I've seen in my 30-plus years as a men's health specialist. By the time we're in our 60s and beyond, our bodies, our hormones, and even our emotions about intimacy can shift in ways we don't always expect. And that doesn't just happen to men, it happens to women, too. Understanding where women love to be touched after 60, and equally important, where they may no longer enjoy it, can make the difference between feeling disconnected and feeling deeply close again. I'm Dr. Nolan Easton, and in this video, I want to walk with you through a topic that, for many couples, is the missing key to rekindling warmth and connection. We'll talk about what changes for women physically and emotionally, why certain touches may feel better, or worse, now than they did decades ago, and how you can approach intimacy with a confidence and tenderness that truly meets her where she is today. If you stay with me, you might find that these insights could bring you closer than you've been in years. Before we go deeper, I want to gently ask, if this is already striking a chord, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell icon so you never miss the advice that could transform your relationship. And if what I'm saying so far makes sense to you, type a simple yes in the comments below. I do read them, and your feedback helps me tailor my advice so I can be of real help to you. Now, one of the first things I want to clear up is that intimacy after 60 is not about doing what you've always done. For some couples, that's exactly where things stall. Robert, for instance, kept initiating affection in ways that Helen once enjoyed, running his hands along her lower back, kissing her deeply, and holding her close in bed. But Helen found that some of those once pleasurable sensations now made her uncomfortable. Her skin had become more sensitive in some areas, less sensitive in others. Certain parts of her body that used to feel good now sometimes felt irritating. And she didn't always have the words to explain that without worrying it might hurt his feelings. This is where many men over 60 can make a breakthrough. Women's physical responses evolve, especially after menopause. Lower estrogen levels can lead to changes in skin elasticity, vaginal dryness, and even shifts in nerve sensitivity. This doesn't mean she doesn't want affection, it means her roadmap has changed, and she needs you to learn the new one. When I explained this to Robert, he leaned back in his chair and said, "So you're saying it's not that she doesn't want me, it's that I've been knocking on the wrong doors?" That's exactly it, and once he understood, his whole approach began to shift. Instead of starting with the same old routine, he began asking Helen questions, watching her reactions closely, and exploring new ways to connect that respected her current comfort. One of the most striking changes Helen reported was how much she loved gentle, prolonged touches on her arms and shoulders. "It feels like he's holding me with care," she told me. "And it makes me feel safe and wanted." At the same time, she admitted that touches on her lower abdomen, which used to be a turn-on for her, now often made her feel self-conscious and tense. These are the kinds of preferences many women discover later in life, but they can be hard to voice unless the couple feels comfortable talking openly. This is where emotional connection comes into play. When you create a space where your partner feels heard and not judged, she's far more likely to tell you what she enjoys and what she doesn't. That, in turn, makes her more relaxed and open during intimacy, which often leads to greater closeness for both of you. It's a cycle that builds on itself. I often encourage men to see this as an opportunity rather than a limitation. In our younger years, we sometimes rely on routine because it works. But in our later years, we have the chance to slow down, pay closer attention, and make each touch intentional. That's the kind of intimacy that not only reignites physical desire but also strengthens the emotional bond. When Robert began experimenting with more gentle touches, Helen started leaning into him more. She began initiating hugs and hand-holding again. Their evenings together stopped feeling like a guessing game and started feeling like a conversation without words, one where both were speaking and both were being heard. And that, really, is what touching is, a form of communication. I want to remind you that the goal here isn't just about avoiding the places she doesn't like to be touched, it's about discovering and cherishing the places she does. It's about shifting from seeing intimacy as a habit to seeing it as a living, breathing exchange that grows with time. And the truth is, when you start to pay attention to her cues, she will notice. And she will respond. For many men I speak to, this realization is like finding a hidden door they didn't know was there. They thought the room was locked forever, but in reality, they just needed a different key. And that key is understanding the changes in her body and spirit, respecting them, and approaching them with curiosity instead of frustration. By now, you might be thinking about your own relationship, moments when a touch felt welcomed, and moments when it didn't. Maybe there have been times when your partner didn't seem to respond the way you hoped, and you weren't sure why. This is the time to pause, observe, and ask. You might be surprised by what you learn, and even more surprised by how much joy can come from simply paying attention in a new way. And that's where Robert and Helen's story really began to change, when both of them started seeing each other not as the people they once were, but as the people they are today, with bodies and hearts still capable of deep, lasting connection. Robert once told me something that really struck a chord. After a few weeks of making these small changes, he came into my office with a half smile and said, "Doc, I think I've been married to 2 different women. And I mean that in the best way." He wasn't talking about infidelity, of course. He was talking about how the woman he knew in his 20s, 30s, and 40s responded to touch in one way, and the woman he was loving now in her 70s responded in a completely different way. And he was beginning to enjoy discovering her all over again. That's a mindset shift I wish more men over 60 could embrace. So many get stuck in a loop of thinking intimacy is slowing down or fading away, when in truth, it's just changing form. If you keep looking for the old responses, you might miss the new ones waiting right in front of you. The key is learning to listen with your hands as well as your ears. Women over 60 often experience changes in blood flow, muscle tone, and skin sensitivity, and these can make certain areas far more pleasurable than they once were, while others might lose that spark. I've had patients tell me they've fallen in love with touches on their face, their scalp, or the gentle tracing of a finger along the inside of the forearm. These touches can release oxytocin, that bonding hormone, without necessarily leading directly to sexual intimacy. And you know what? For many women, that's exactly what opens the door to more physical closeness later. Helen described it beautifully. She told me, "When Robert rubs the back of my neck now, I feel it all the way down my spine. But if he grabs my waist suddenly like he used to when we were young, I tense up." For her, the slower, warmer touches told her brain and her heart that she was safe, cherished, and seen. Those feelings allowed her body to relax, and in turn, made physical affection much more enjoyable. This is where men sometimes need to relearn pacing. In younger years, it might have been common to move quickly from one type of touch to another, thinking that building speed meant building excitement. But for many women after 60, that quickness can actually be overwhelming. Touch that lingers, that pauses, that gives her a chance to breathe. It becomes less about rushing toward a goal and more about enjoying the journey. I can tell you from decades in practice that men who adopt this mindset often find they're not just improving intimacy, they're also improving trust, laughter, and the simple joy of being together. And that joy can spill over into every part of life. Let me be clear. Understanding where women love and hate to be touched after 60 is not about creating a checklist in your mind. It's not about avoiding certain areas like they're landmines. It's about approaching your partner with curiosity and respect, being open to learning and adjusting, and seeing every moment of touch as part of an ongoing conversation. I remember another couple, Margaret and James. Margaret had been hesitant to talk about her dislikes because she didn't want James to think she was rejecting him. James, on the other hand, admitted that he had stopped initiating certain kinds of touch altogether out of fear of doing it wrong. They were both missing out because neither was quite sure how to start the conversation. When they finally did, gently, and with a sense of humor, they discovered that Margaret loved having her hands massaged but disliked firm pressure on her lower back. That single exchange transformed their evenings together. You might be wondering how to even begin asking about preferences without making it awkward. Here's what I told James, and what I'll tell you now. Keep it light and keep it loving. You could say something like, "I want to make you feel good, tell me what you love." Or, "I'm curious, do you like this?" And then pay close attention to her body language. If she leans in, relaxes, or sighs, you're on the right track. If she pulls away, stiffens, or her expression changes, that's your signal to slow down or shift to another area. And please, don't take these signals personally. It's not a scorecard. It's feedback from someone whose body has its own wisdom, and who will love you all the more for respecting it. If what I'm sharing right now feels like it could help your relationship, take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and tap that bell icon so you can get more advice like this. And type yes in the comments if you believe learning your partner's changing preferences is worth the effort. I read those responses, and they help me shape future videos so I can serve you better. Robert and Helen's story continued to evolve because Robert didn't stop with the first few changes that worked. He kept exploring. He started noticing that when they were sitting on the couch, Helen loved when he absent-mindedly stroked her forearm while they talked. It wasn't sexual in intent, but it deepened their connection. She began returning the favor, running her hand through his hair when they watched TV. These little moments began to stack up, building intimacy in a way that didn't feel forced or scripted. And that's the beauty of this stage of life. You have the time, the wisdom, and, hopefully, the patience to really see each other. You're not rushing to get the kids in bed or worrying about being up at dawn for work. You can linger, and in that lingering, you might find touches you've never even tried before become favorites. Still, I know some men feel nervous about change. They wonder, what if I try something new and she doesn't like it? My answer is always the same. That's not failure, that's progress. Because in trying, you're showing her that you care enough to learn, to adapt, and to meet her where she is now. And that effort, more than anything, is what most women love after 60. When I see couples embrace this, I watch barriers crumble. Arguments about, "You're not affectionate anymore," start to disappear. Instead, I hear things like, "I feel more connected to you than I have in years." And that's not about a single magic touch. It's about the willingness to discover together what feels good today, not just what used to feel good decades ago. Robert often says he feels like he's dating Helen again, even though they've been married for over 40 years. That sense of novelty, of rediscovery, is what keeps love vibrant at any age. And it starts with something as simple as paying attention to where, and how, she likes to be touched right now. One evening, Robert shared something with me that perfectly captured the heart of this transformation. He said, "Doc, I stopped trying to get it right the first time. Now, I'm just trying to enjoy the moment with her, and funny enough, that's when she responds the most." That's the secret so many couples over 60 overlook. It's not about perfection, it's about presence. When we're younger, intimacy often has an end goal in mind, and everything we do is aimed at getting there quickly. But after 60, the pace of affection can shift in a beautiful way. It becomes more about savoring each stage of connection. That might mean spending an entire evening simply holding hands, caressing a shoulder, or stroking her hair while you talk. Those small moments send a powerful message. I'm here with you, not just here for what's next. I've worked with countless couples where the woman's primary complaint wasn't about a lack of sexual interest. It was about a lack of meaningful touch outside of the bedroom. For many women at this stage of life, that non-sexual touch is the bridge that leads to deeper intimacy. It tells her that your affection isn't conditional on what happens later. It tells her that you value closeness in its own right. Helen put it best one day in my office. "When Robert hugs me in the kitchen just because he wants to, I feel like I can breathe easier. I don't feel pressured, I just feel loved," and that feeling is what allows her to open up physically when the time is right. It's a reminder that her comfort is being honored, and that makes her far more willing to explore other kinds of touch when the moment feels natural. But let's also be honest, after 60, certain touches may actually become uncomfortable, even painful, and that's something every caring partner needs to acknowledge. Areas like the lower abdomen, inner thighs, or breasts can become more sensitive or tender due to changes in skin elasticity, hormonal shifts, or past surgeries. For some women, direct pressure on these areas may feel unpleasant, even if it once brought pleasure. This is why communication is so vital. You can't guess your way through these changes without risking misunderstandings. When I talk to men about this, I often see a flash of worry cross their faces. They fear that too many off-limits areas mean their options are disappearing. But that's not the case. What actually happens is that your attention gets redirected to places you might have overlooked for decades: her hands, her feet, her neck, the curve of her jaw, the small of her back. These areas can carry incredible emotional weight when touched with care. And here's something important to remember: the quality of your touch matters more than the location. A rushed, distracted touch on her favorite spot won't do nearly as much for her as a slow, intentional one somewhere unexpected. Your focus, your presence, and your patience are what turn an ordinary moment into an intimate one. Robert learned this in the simplest way. One night, while they were watching a movie, he began lightly massaging Helen's temples, just to help her relax. She later told him it was one of the most intimate moments they'd had in years, not because it was inherently sexual, but because it made her feel cared for. That small act told her he was tuned into her comfort and well-being, not just his own desire. If what I'm sharing resonates with you, take a second to like this video, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you can get more advice designed to help your relationship thrive in these golden years. And if you believe that intimacy after 60 can be richer than ever when approached with care, type yes in the comments. I truly do read them, and your responses help me shape these conversations so they serve you best. Now, I know some men struggle with patience when exploring new kinds of touch. They might say, "Doc, I just don't know how long to keep it slow before she's ready for more." My advice? Stop thinking in terms of before she's ready for more, and start thinking in terms of this is the moment. When your touch is guided by curiosity rather than a countdown, she can sense it, and that sense of safety and enjoyment can naturally lead to more physical closeness without either of you feeling rushed. Helen told me that once Robert adopted this approach, she actually found herself wanting to initiate intimacy more often. "I don't feel like I'm bracing myself anymore," she said. "Now I'm looking forward to finding out where the evening might go." That's a profound change, and it didn't come from learning some secret spot or technique. It came from shifting the way touch was given and received. And that's why I tell every man over 60 who asks me about this: forget the idea of a universal map. Every woman is unique, and her preferences will change over time. The only way to truly know where she loves, and where she dislikes being touched is to pay attention in real time. Notice her breathing, watch her eyes, feel how her body responds under your hand. This is the language of touch, and once you learn to read it, your connection can deepen in ways you may not have thought possible. Robert and Helen's story isn't about avoiding conflict or tiptoeing around each other. It's about leaning into discovery, even after decades together. And the reward has been a renewed sense of closeness that both of them thought might have been lost to time. Robert and Helen's journey reached a point where they both realized something important. Intimacy after 60 wasn't about holding on to what used to work. It was about building something entirely new together. Robert told me one afternoon, "Doc, I used to think change meant loss. Now I see it can mean gain, if you're willing to explore." That shift in perspective was what kept their connection not only alive, but thriving. I want to emphasize that for many women at this stage, the places they love to be touched often have more to do with how those touches make them feel emotionally than with physical sensation alone. A soft caress along the cheek can feel more intimate than a hurried kiss. The warm weight of your hand on her shoulder while you're talking can speak volumes about safety, trust, and love. These aren't just gestures. They're signals that you see her, value her, and want to be present with her. At the same time, respecting her boundaries is just as essential as discovering her preferences. If there are places she no longer enjoys being touched, avoiding those areas isn't about rejection, it's about care. It tells her, "I'm listening to you. I hear you." And when a woman feels listened to in this way, her comfort level rises, often unlocking a deeper physical connection than you might expect. Helen once confided in me that Robert's willingness to adapt was what made her feel young again. "It's not about my skin or my shape," she said. "It's that he treats me like I'm worth the effort to figure out." That's a powerful statement, and it's one I've heard in many variations from women over 60. It's proof that the act of learning, of being curious about her, can be as arousing and meaningful as the touch itself. Now, this kind of closeness doesn't just happen in the bedroom. The couples I see thriving at this stage weave it into their daily lives. A light squeeze of the hand while walking together. A playful nudge in the kitchen. Resting a hand on her back as you guide her through a doorway. These moments seem small, but they create a constant thread of connection that makes more intimate moments easier and more natural. Robert became especially good at this. He started leaving little touches throughout the day, never expecting anything in return. And something interesting happened. Helen began mirroring him. She'd place her hand on his chest when talking to him, or rub his shoulder while passing by. This reciprocity built a rhythm between them, a quiet dance that made their relationship feel more alive than it had in years. If you've been feeling that your relationship has grown distant or that physical affection has become awkward, I want to encourage you to take that first step. Start with a touch that has no agenda. Hold her hand for a moment longer than usual. Brush a strand of hair from her face. See how she responds, not with expectation, but with openness. And if this conversation feels like it's speaking directly to you, please like this video, subscribe, and tap that bell icon so you never miss another discussion that could make a real difference in your relationship. Type yes in the comments if you believe that learning your partner's evolving preferences is worth the time and effort. I read those comments, and they truly help me guide these talks so they can help as many couples as possible. When it comes to the areas women love and hate to be touched after 60, the truth is, there's no fixed list that works for everyone. But there is one universal truth. When your touch comes from a place of attention, respect, and genuine desire to connect, it becomes infinitely more powerful. It's the difference between going through the motions and creating a moment she'll remember. Robert and Helen's story didn't end with them simply finding a new set of right touches. It continued with them exploring, adjusting, and even laughing together when something didn't quite work. They stopped treating intimacy as a routine to be perfected and started treating it as an adventure to be shared. And that, more than anything else, is what kept them close. So if you're willing to approach your partner with fresh eyes and open hands, to listen not just to her words but to her body language, and to replace assumption with curiosity, you might just discover that this stage of life holds more connection, tenderness, and passion than you ever imagined possible. And like Robert and Helen, you may find that the best part of your love story is still unfolding. When I think about Robert and Helen now, I see two people who've learned one of the most valuable lessons about intimacy in later life. It's not about knowing everything. It's about staying willing to learn. That mindset has kept their connection vibrant, and it's something I want every couple over 60 to understand. Touch, after all, is more than a physical act. It's a form of language. Every brush of the fingertips, every squeeze of the hand, every gentle kiss is a word in that language. And just like any language, it can evolve over time. The words that once held meaning may not carry the same weight now, and new words may need to be discovered. When you approach touch this way, it becomes less about where the boundaries are and more about how to communicate love, desire, and respect through your hands. For many women over 60, the areas they enjoy most are often the ones that feel emotionally significant, not just physically sensitive. The top of the shoulder, the inside of the wrist, the curve of the jaw, these may not have been prime focus years ago, but now they can carry deep meaning when touched with intention. That's why I often tell men, slow down, watch, and listen, not just with your ears, but with your fingertips. At the same time, honoring the places she no longer wants to be touched is a sign of maturity and care. If she flinches when you touch a certain area, you're not losing ground. You're gaining trust by adjusting without making her explain herself over and over. That unspoken understanding can make her feel safer, which in turn can reignite closeness in ways you might not expect. Helen told me once, "The fact that Robert doesn't push when I pull away makes me want to let him in more." That statement has stuck with me for years, because it perfectly sums up how respect fosters intimacy. It's not about avoiding every potential misstep, it's about responding with kindness when they happen. And here's something I want every couple watching to hear. Intimacy after 60 can be richer, deeper, and more satisfying than anything you've experienced before, if you treat it as an exploration rather than a performance. Let go of the pressure to get it right every time. Instead, focus on the moments that make her feel seen, valued, and desired. Robert and Helen did this in small, consistent ways. He'd rest his hand on hers during dinner. She'd touch his cheek when saying goodnight. Those little touches built a foundation of connection that made the more intimate moments flow naturally. They didn't need to schedule romance, it was woven into their daily lives. If this perspective is speaking to you, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you can keep learning alongside other couples just like you. And if you believe that touch, given with care and curiosity, can transform a relationship at any age, type yes in the comments. I read every single one, and your feedback shapes the advice I share. As Robert and Helen discovered, the magic isn't in knowing exactly where to touch. It's in the willingness to explore together, to laugh when something doesn't work, and to celebrate when it does. It's in replacing old assumptions with new discoveries. And it's in remembering that even after decades together, you can still surprise each other in the best ways. So, wherever you are in your relationship, I want to leave you with this. Start today. Try a new kind of touch. Hold her hand longer. Brush your fingers along a place you've overlooked. And when she responds, whether with a smile, a sigh, or lean into your embrace, let that be your guide. This stage of life is not the end of intimacy. For many, it's the beginning of a chapter filled with more tenderness, more understanding, and more joy than ever before. And just like Robert and Helen, you may discover that the woman beside you still has parts of her heart and body that you haven't met yet, and meeting them now might just be the most rewarding journey you'll ever take.